This is your host, Pete Moore, and I am pleased and humbled to announce the launch of my one and only book titled Time to Win Again, 50 Takeaways from Playing and Watching Team Sports to Guarantee Your Business Success. Those of you who know me personally, and anyone who listens to Halo Talks for any length of time, know that I am an avid sports fan and a big believer in the value of team sports. What I've seen over the past 25 years helping businesses grow, raising capital, being an entrepreneur myself, and coaching and mentoring executives in the sector, it's the lessons learned on the field perfectly apply to business. Entrepreneurs, executives, managers, you name it. Every company that's a strong company has got a good team. It's a quick read. There's awesome illustrations in there from our good friend Mark at Cruelty Free Cartoons. If you go to integritysq.com, enter your email address, and we will send you information on the book and the Entrepreneur's Survival Kit as well. Be great. Take names. Go Halo. This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC, broadcasting live from Nicky Blaine's downtown Indianapolis with my good friend Kevin MacCauley, coming from Upper Hand Software. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Pete.
Awesome. Well, we were able to meet in person, which is nice to do post-pandemic, as I want to refer to this chapter of our lives. Not during the pandemic. We are officially post-pandemic. And I want to talk about your background and how you are attacking the Halo sector. So you want to start off with your sports background and entrepreneurial background, and we'll kind of riff from there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Keep it simple, and we'll jump. Went to Indiana University, MacCauley School of Business. Been in startup world business life for pretty much my entire career. Come from a big baseball family. Sports family, rather. Brother played pro ball. I got a nephew at Butler right now. But really the thing that excites me about the space we're in is, as a coach myself in Washington, D.C., I was coaching youth baseball. Started having parents come to me and say, hey, my kid would love to learn more about pitching or hitting or whatever it might be. And, knowing some of the coaches you run across in youth sports, I said, man, absolutely. I'd love to do that, right? Growing up as a kid myself, to get better, you just throw a ball against the wall, whereas now it's, specialized training and starting to get more and more into fitness. So I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. But so I started doing lessons, and in that experience, after an hour lesson with a kid, you get a check from a parent with, put in your sweaty pocket. Just a terrible way to do business, and super awkward, by the way. And it was in that experience that I started to recognize an opportunity to really do better business in sports and fitness. And so we started actually as a marketplace, helping connect parents and coaches and trainers, with qualified coaches. And through that experience, we recognize one of the key aspects of what we do today is just the experience, connecting people you don't know on two sides of the marketplace to transact online in an e-commerce transaction. Something that is, for our industry, fairly, new relative to how long e-com's been around in other industries. And so we recognize that. We figured out the marketplace side, the business piece. We started to learn, marketplaces are tough. It's like a match.com. You meet somebody. Why the hell would you keep going back through it? It's a fee-based thing. But we saw other people continuing to go through it. I went and met with them in person. We'll go down to a baseball facility. Hey, why do you guys keep sending your parents through a marketplace? And, the response I'd get, man, there's nothing to run this business today. We've got no way to schedule, our lessons. We've got no way to get them paid for, communicate, et cetera. And so that's where we really started to focus on building software in our space.
Gotcha. Cool. And then from a standpoint of kind of, pivoting from a marketplace into, powering the mission critical software and billing on behalf of large multi-sport facilities or franchisors or enterprise, what kind of gave you the inroads to say, yeah, I know that there's some software companies out there, but look, I'm coming from a different perspective. I'm coming from, the member perspective. I'm not coming from, I have a frustration. I used to run my own facility, but let me tell you how I think your facility should run, and like maybe redefining like that if a sports facility is the authority in their community, then what should they be able to do with their software? How do they think about their software differently?
No, that's a great question, and people would say our space is crowded, but I'd say our space is fairly new. When we started out and I'd go to those facilities, that was 6, 7, 8 years ago. Most of the people we compete with are older than that. So it's not that there are not options on the market, but there's nothing that runs that sports or fitness business. And when I talk about running the business, we're talking about it in terms of, just like in any other industry, you try to run a business, right? It's all about the consumer. It's all about the experience that member or buyer has. And it's not just processing a payment, right? It's not just putting somebody on a schedule or roster or even getting access to that data, which is something you can't really do in majority of platforms today. It's how do you now start thinking about, with the rise of Peloton and digital disruption in our space, athlete progression. How is software helping that business owner who is an expert in fitness or an expert in baseball or football, whatever it is, help them deliver the value of what they're doing to help a consumer know they're getting better. You pay thousands and thousands of dollars, something like 20% of U.S. income parents have spent on youth sports and fitness. And it's the one industry where you actually have no idea if you're getting any better, until Apple Health came along. You got your Apple Watch, right? You got Whoop. You name the accessory. And so there's this massive rise of, knowledge and information for consumers, which is really exciting. But who's the platform that's going to help solve that, right? And I believe Upper Hand is best positioned to do that.
So when you talk about athlete progression, which isn't a term that is widely used in our industry yet, define what that means and the technology that you've built, and then how that information gets back to either the trainer or the club owner, and how that kind of keeps somebody, I usually say, results is what keeps a member, right? It's not, just their routine. It's like, hey, I see physical, mental, and, social results.
Yeah. That's a great question, because really to get there, there's step one. Step one is you have to be able to have visibility into the data for the business first, right? So if I've got a family with 3 kids, you need to be able to find that from a data perspective inside that software. Otherwise, we're never going to get to progression tracking. So building a platform that is architected in a way that today I could plug into our production database, we could start querying and pulling any report we want on the business, right? And we're continuing to improve and refine that. With that in place, now we can focus on progression of an athlete, which is really very similar like Fitbod, the app, right? Apple Fitness, like you look at all these apps and they create these workouts for you, right? You just sort of pick, hey, I want to be this lean, or I want to be, this big. And they produce those athletes sort of workouts, right? Or fitness workouts and programs. And so that's part one. Part two is then the data assessment data, the what's happening behind that workout or after that workout that is tracking the success, right? So maybe it's velocity, maybe it's gait cadence on a treadmill. But then you combine all that into the business side data. Now we're really going to be able to empower that business owner to not just make decisions about, how many free trials should we give on our membership, but how many free trials should we give to the highest lifetime value, athlete or fitness, member within our business to run with. And that's where we're most excited about the industry and all the things we're learning from Peloton to Precor, to every accessory and hardware that's out there. And it's great for the industry.
When you take a look at, the average multi-sport facility operator, they already got 100 things to do, right? It's almost like you might as well sign up to be a firefighter if you're going to go run like a multi-sport facility, because there's always something going on. So do you think internally executive management teams are going to start to say, hey, look, I actually want you focused on athlete progression. Like, here's this data set that I want you to actually spend time on in mind, because there's going to be some predictive analytics and there's going to be some, hey, if this, then do that. But do you kind of see more, data scientists or marketing people, or, we talk about spend more time on intelligence, and then that intelligence will manage your business and it'll grow your business without you having to come up with other ideas.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Without a doubt, the data scientist world, and in some ways we're a good example of where, you could get value, right? So I would compare us, it's like the David and Goliath story, right? We know who we are. We're not, 1,000 employee organization today. But with data, the ability to pull data out and use it immediately makes a company extremely valuable and lethal, I think, in terms of just being able to scale and deliver value to a business owner. Because today you could plug in to production database, which is not how you do it. For all the data engineers and scientists out there, you would definitely separate your production data from your reporting data. But point being, the way it's already architected, you understand it to a point where, man, you could connect it to some Whoop data, right? You can connect it to other data that's out there to then start blending the data. Look at it. Are we letting athletes or fitness members get too good too fast? Right? Is there a level of all right, maybe they're working out too much in terms of their lifetime value, so let's stretch out the programming that we do. Maybe they're not seeing enough different types of instructors. Right? You can run some K-means analysis to pick 7 different attributes. One of them could be which instructors are they seeing, and identify, man, there's this one instructor. When everybody sees them in that cluster, they have a higher lifetime value by 3x. So what would we do next? Well, we'd make sure that instructor hits every one of the other clusters to pull up a higher lifetime value for the business. So that's where, to your point on the data scientists and engineers, business analysts, et cetera, that is the future. Gartner's saying by the end of next year, there'll be a shortage of 500,000, employees to fill the roles that are out there. So it's going to be difficult for folks in our space because it's not cheap. Hiring a data team is expensive.
Right. So how much does your software do in order to accomplish that? Or here's some templated reports, not to use template in a bad word, but here's reports, and here's directing you on things that you should look at, or predictability, or here's certain drips that go out, or here's some alerts that come up that say, hey, we got some issues with this, cohort.
Yeah. So today we've launched something called Membership Analytics. It's very similar for folks that are familiar with sort of SaaS tools and products out there. ChartMogul, it's a tool we've used years ago, and it sort of helps software companies measure, the effectiveness of their SaaS metrics, things like how many new members you get, how many churn. Within our software now, natively, we've designed Membership Analytics so that a business owner can go back and, as far back in history of the business as they want to, looking through the end of this year to see how many new members they have, the cost of cancellations, the cost of people downgrading their membership. They can look at reactivations, and then we're able to forecast what that membership, recurring revenue looks like on each month through the end of the year. So now you're starting to get visibility into spend and budget, and then you can focus on people that have scheduled cancellation dates on their membership. And we can start targeting those people. Let's reach out to them. They understand why they're leaving. Hey, what would it take to bring you back, after you do leave, et cetera. So that would be one example of an analytics platform that we've just launched that's native to the platform without doing any data science work at all.
Got it. So, define, I know you've got kind of 2 categories. So you got your SMB, your small, medium-sized businesses, and you've got your enterprise accounts. So, maybe role play with us for a couple of minutes here. What's a sales pitch if I'm on another software platform, or maybe I'm on an industry generic platform and I'm using, just business tools, and I want to now, take my business to the next level? What are some of 4 or 5 of the top, selling points of your software, or where you say, hey, upper hand, whatever you got, we're best in class in these categories?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, nobody's going to develop functionality as fast as we are, on a weekly, monthly basis. So first thing I tell people is if I'm going to decide what software to switch as a small business or a franchise, how often is that business you're currently using pushing new code? Mm-hmm. And you may be able, how do I answer that question? Anybody can go to github.com and look for the company's, most recent, history. You don't have to be a member of that code base to know how often it gets updated. But it's a fair question. If I own a business and I'm going to commit to a software for 12, 24, 36 months, how often does it get updated? Right? How stale does it become, and how quick does that happen? And so that's number one. You're sort of picking that platform that is building for the future, right? And it's not to say that we have everything in the world, but we're building for that. That's number one. Number two is the experience that comes with it, because we are building on a regular basis. We're only in sports and fitness, and we're not in adjacent categories. Wellness and other places, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we just happen to serve, again, going back to athlete progressions and things of that nature. That doesn't matter to people outside of our space, where over the last several years, you've seen this blend of athlete performance, fitness, speed, agility, really merging between sports and fitness, right? And Peloton's helping with that, making fitness people feel like they're athletes again. And so there's that piece. And then for the enterprise, and it also trickles down to an SMB, but our ability to report in the data capabilities for an enterprise, taking our code base and essentially branching off our core API to create an API that has your own data set and database for that franchise. We haven't seen anything else like it on the market.
Gotcha. So when you kind of go up against some of the, more incumbent players, you've got those points as well, but, you got the scheduling component, what functionality, if I got kids care, if I got leagues and tournaments, some of these things you obviously can do and you can continue to develop, but, give us the breadth of the types of, activities that the software covers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll just sort of start with what we're known for. First is resource, facility management. So our ability to manage in a single-use facility or multiplex facility or multi-use facility rather. So if you're running just one sport or fitness type event versus some of these massive complexes that you really have businesses within a business, right? Our ability to manage the resources, cages, fields, classrooms, et cetera, is next level with our resource management, membership analytics, and membership management, which I've already mentioned to you before, but our ability to sell a membership through a phone for multiple people within the family, and then letting those people buy anything else they want throughout that transaction. It helps tremendously on the franchise side. You're pre-opening a store. I mean, what a great way to sell. You make 15, 20% more on upper hand just because of the capability to sell the memberships through an app without ever walking in the store. Then you got, integrated payments, some of the stuff that, does matter. It's a little more boring to talk about, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to move money wherever you need to. You got to be able to have the point of sale system and terminal that matters. And is, again, going back to the experience, not every terminal is going to be great in every, front desk or for those types of customers. And so our ability to, in the last 18 months, we've built into 2 different terminals for our franchise customers, staff payroll capabilities, and then marketing. And then the last piece would be video analysis. We've learned a lot over the years because of sports. We call an app we've built Apex because it's the apex of development of an athlete and really fitness development. You not only see as a coach, it's important to show somebody how to move their hands and grab their hands and move them, or say, hey, maybe you need to, your gait should be this distance. But it's also important for people to see themselves, right? And it's sort of 50-50. And when you get those together, you really do have the apex of that development. So we've got the ability to help franchises where that's important or small businesses.
I want to take a minute and tell our audience about 2 awesome workout recovery products I've been using for the last 18 months from higherdose.com, leader in infrared technology for athletes like all of us are. We're an investor in the company. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because it works. You got an infrared sauna blanket. I hop in there. I'll listen to some podcasts, burn 800 calories, get a mad detox. And a PEMF, which is a pulsed electromagnetic field crystal mat that I lay on, and I recalibrate my cells to the normalized level of the earth. If you got somebody you like and you're looking for a pretty awesome gift, they will love it. You could use this code HALO75, get $75 off, and you will not be disappointed. higherdose.com, promo code HALO75. And now let's get back to our regularly scheduled program. So one of the things that I was impressed by when we met earlier was you're very focused on, here's what we do, and I'm actually going to go out, speaking as you, and I'm going to go find software platforms that are going to support my business. Obviously, you got developers that you can go build your own Salesforce.com, CRM and lead capture. You could use your own customer support, but you decide to use, Gong. You got obviously, you're outsourcing a number of different functions that aren't core to the business. So talk about from an entrepreneur standpoint, maybe it's from your tech stars, maybe it's just, this is the way you do things. But how do you kind of balance between, hey guys, this is what we do, and this is like our core asset and intellectual property, and we're going to optimize that, and we're going to use other people that view whatever they're doing as their core competency, and I'm willing to pay for that.
Yeah, well, I think it's the battle every company in our space, or any space really, you're building software has between sales, marketing, and then product and engineering, right? It's like you can't be everything to everyone. But at the same time, some things do matter, right? So we use an example of CRM in our space. Everybody wants to be able to cold call and then track, the lead status, and then the conversion rate of those leads to members, et cetera, all of which is important. But, do we as Upper Hand want to be, focusing on building, what HubSpot's going to do a lot faster, or what, SendGrid's going to do a lot faster? And the answer is no. What we want is to be able to get enough of the data that is needed in order to then connect and let the business use what's going to help them excel in those areas where they need help, right? So we don't want to make the decision on what you use as a business, because business owners know their business better than we do, right? And I think it's a challenge. You just have those. Honestly, sometimes there are arguments, internally about, well, do we want to build this, or all the way, or is this like the intro feature to get connected to other platforms for people? And we think about that a lot. Resource management is a good example. There's nothing out there to manage resources top down, from the time and availability of a resource to the staff time and availability schedule to the event schedule, and when those resources and all those different things are booked and used up. So we did that. We built that ourselves, right? As opposed to, all right, SMS and some other things. Let's plug into SendGrid and Twilio, right? They've been around forever. They're not going anywhere. Or for us to then integrate and build on top of that over time.
Yeah, gotcha. So if you could talk a little bit about some of the clients you have. Obviously, when you're running a SaaS business and it's a multi-unit platform, you get the benefit of piggybacking off the growth of your top clients. So, if you can name a couple of clients, if you're comfortable, or if you're not comfortable, name them anyway, and we'll talk about it later. No, I'm just kidding, bro. Give us a couple of examples of hey, I started with this business. Here's where they've got to. I've kind of scaled with them, and how fun of that ride is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so a couple that come to mind: DBAT, which is the 73rd, 78th largest franchise in the country, and they're baseball, softball. Most major leaguers who've trained out at DBAT location. DBAT is an acronym for Dallas Bat and baseball, and just a great customer. We started out, they struggle with resource management. We helped build and customize that capability. We've built into 2 different terminals for them. They're about 100 location franchise system across the country. Athletic Republic, which would really be the segue into more of the fitness aspect, where they're training, elite athletes on the Olympic sort of level of competitiveness. Very data-driven company and franchise, where we're helping them kind of unlock, the access to that data and kind of what it might mean for their athletes. But other customers, honestly, some of my favorite ones are the little guys. One of our earliest customers, John Plogic, modern Goalkeeper, started out with us, been using us for 6 years. We've helped grow his business well into the 6 figures above. I think he was making 70, 80,000 a year before using us, and he was doing it all by pen and paper, checking cash. And most of those businesses, you got somebody up until midnight, working on it, and it's crazy. And he's an excellent coach. And so for me, that's what gets me the most excited, is because a guy like that's now coaching more people on a more regular basis, which is good for society. Yeah.
So how do you obviously give people references when they're deciding on your software, but how do you get across directly that, hey, look, I actually really am your partner. Don't ever call me a vendor, because I'm not your vendor. I'm really lockstep, 24/7. But talk about that, and talk a little bit about the team that you built, because I think that's a real important asset in understanding, who the clients are and feeling and caring.
No, yeah. Well, it's incredibly difficult in our space for new companies to come in, and a lot of times in sort of business school, right? It's like, is it a switching sale, or is it a new sale? Well, in our space, when people hear scheduling or event management or membership management, it's just like, man, how boring. So to carve out the differentiation, it's difficult, because you also want to use those terms, because that's how you know who to target, right, from a marketing perspective. So I think it can be very challenging as a business, and we're starting to really get a name for ourselves as Upper Hand. Starting to see some really exciting opportunities come our way. As far as, and then you had asked about the team. We've learned this, from others that have done a great job out in our space, but we try to hire people first and foremost off of core values. The first one being, are you passionate about technology and sports and fitness, right? We've got people here that are, Shred 415 instructors, Orange Theory instructors, F45 instructors, using lots of different softwares, but at the end of the day, they just love being in the space, right? They know the consumer, but you also have to be passionate about technology. I mean, coming in here and talking about, the next version of SendGrid or, HubSpot or what people are using, if you're kind of an old school back the napkin person, that's going to bore you, and you're not going to relate to our customers at the end of the day or have any empathy with what they're going through, with COVID and needing video on demand, et cetera. So we've built a company around hiring on those core values. Thus far it's working out for us.
Yeah. So last point here before we close up, I've been a big advocate and evangelist since COVID hit that the large boxes that have big indoor outdoor facilities, cater towards families, is a safe place in their community are going to get a windfall of traffic and revenue because people aren't going to be going on as many trips, whether that's international or whether that's, to places that they don't know what the COVID or Delta or whatever, the flavor of the month is of the strain of COVID. So, how are you kind of calibrating what the next couple of years look like for you? Are you kind of looking to go broader with the types of facilities? Are you saying, hey, look, I want to replicate what I do really well for the current types of businesses, and I'm going to target those businesses and kind of grow with that thesis?
Yeah. Let me tell a story of a company I started, prior to this called ClassWatch, because our industry is very akin to the education space in that you've got parents a lot of times paying for, the sports of their kid, right? Or even fitness, right? I mean, at the end of the day, health is priority number one in the face of COVID. But at ClassWatch, we launched that in the middle of the housing crisis of 2008, selling luxury watches that were custom branded with the university. So we went out to compete with, the big boys, Balfour, Jostens, Herf Jones, et cetera, billion-dollar companies. And we partnered with 18 of the world's largest, luxury watch brands, from Tissot to Movado Group, Oakley, Baume Mercier. And we took the watch apart and we put, University of North Carolina on it, or Emory University on the watch. You can put your initials, all that sort of stuff. The housing crisis happens, right? Well, who would you think is ever going to spend $2,000 on a watch? Right? I mean, nobody's got money. It's a down economy.
Right.
We sold more watches than you ever could have imagined, because that's actually at the point where parents care more about recognizing, the commemorative aspects of what they've done, what their kids have done, right? And that's the same thing with sports, because the kids only getting older, right? They want that development. There's so many values and things we could talk about with respect to sports, but with respect to that, I think you're 100% right. The U.S. there's going to be less international travel, which is going to benefit U.S.-based businesses. But I think regardless, in the down economy, this is a safe industry to be in, and we're fortunate in that regard, because I know it's been painful for everybody. But I can only imagine in some of the wellness spaces, that's the first thing that goes as discretionary spending.
Yeah, agreed. So in closing here, I'm psyched that we're working together. Look forward to spending more time. You got any good sports quotes or any business quotes that you have to say, like, okay, that's a Kevin-ism?
Well, I wish I could take claim to my own quotes, but the best one's right here. The harder it is to surrender, the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. Vince Lombardi. And for people in our space, I think there's nothing more relevant than that today. The harder you work, awesome, the harder it is to surrender.
I like it. All right. Well, we've all persevered. If you still listen to this podcast, you're probably still in business. So we will keep fighting and making things happen and make sure people know that it's safe to come in and to be healthy again. And your couch and isolation is not the way to live a healthy, active Halo lifestyle. So Good to have you on the show, man. Look forward to seeing you at URSA, and we will be in touch.
All right.
Awesome.